I would love just one day if I could get that from you, because maybe one day it won't be as clear as it was.
Right, exactly.
So as I started talking, I was just,
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, you can have whatever you want.
Okay.
I give it all.
Yeah.
The detail on that too, like the sound.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wow.
Yeah, it was like,
That's what stays with you.
it was like celery going, it was just loud. Yeah.
For how long were you paralyzed?
So the interesting thing was that the paralysis didn't last really a long time like it can. What they do now, and I was really lucky that I'm of the I'm the luckiest person with a broken neck you've ever met. Love saying that. I was lucky because I'm of the era where they discovered that if they give you a massive injection of steroids right when you break your neck, you're less likely to suffer from long-term paralysis, because a lot of people, when they break their neck, they actually don't sever their spine, but the swelling then puts the pressure on the spine and causes the paralysis. So they do this immediately, and I was lucky because I have a girlfriend who was shot years ago, and it was so long ago they didn't do that. So who knows, maybe she would have been able to walk again. But yeah. So anyway, I was really lucky in that they were able to do that. So I was totally paralyzed for 4 days. But actually I can't even say 4 days, because right away, and this is what made me think I was going to be fine, I could wiggle my toes. And I remember all those movies that I've seen where if they can't wiggle their toes, they never walk again, so I could wiggle my toes. And my paralysis was really interesting because I always think of paralysis as being from the waist down. The interesting thing for me is that my paralysis was from the neck to the waist. So it was from here to here. So I had no arm function. I couldn't feel my arms at all. I remember one time the doctor, suddenly my arm was here in front of my face, and I thought, how'd that get there? Because he had lifted up my arm. I couldn't feel it. It was really tough in the hospital because I was in bed and I had this halo on, so I couldn't turn my head at all. It's this contraption that you're all secured into. And I couldn't feel my stomach. I couldn't feel anything. And I couldn't, so if something, I started getting a little feeling in my hands, or I could start moving my arms, but if something, I couldn't see, but if something fell on me, like a brush or a mirror or something, a letter, I couldn't feel where it was because I was completely numb. It was very strange. And then after 2 weeks, I tried to start walking, which was really interesting. I remember being in bed one night and calling for help, and nobody would come, and just crying. And coincidentally, my Kaiser doctor called me, and Fariba Ariz, and she said, "How you doing?" I said, I can't get out, and nobody's coming to my bed. And she goes, "Rusty, you're just going to have to get out of that bed." And she did the tough love thing, and I was crying, I can't get out. I mean, I really, literally, this thing weighs 7 pounds. It's like a bowling ball in your head, and your neck is broken. You use that. And so she was just yelling at me, "You got to get out of that bed." And so for 10 minutes, I struggled and cried and got out of that bed. And I sat up and I got out of the bed by myself. I got out of the bed. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed. And then on a Friday, I said, let's try to walk. So they had those things that you see where you hold onto the poles. I could only get halfway. And I was, oh my God, I can't, halfway. And then they said, well, you just keep practicing. And so on Monday, I was walking everywhere in the hospital. So from Friday to Monday, I just kept practicing, and it just kept coming back. And I would push my wheelchair around the hallways. And by Monday, I was walking. It was amazing.
What was it you think inside of yourself that a lot of people would get tough love and still not?
I think I'm just lucky. Again, I'm lucky. I'm just an optimist. I've always been a cup half full. I would take this cup and say, well, that's questionable, but there's water in it. That's awesome, right? So I was just born that way. I was a happy little girl, I was a happy little girl. I'm an optimist. I am definitely always looking at the bright side, always. And I think that in the hospital, it was the same thing. I was just lucky in that I had that approach. Mm-hmm. But I have to tell you, interestingly, once I got out of ICU and I was in a room and everything was starting to fall in, like all the physical therapy and all that kind of stuff, I thought, I wonder what kind of patient I'm going to be. Am I going to be one of these like really moany, negative patients, or am I going to be one of these really upbeat? I wondered that about myself, and I was really happy to find out what kind of patient I was. I was good. My physical therapy, I taught my physical therapist how to swing dance. My occupational therapy, I taught my therapist how to do her hair in 1940s rolls. They had a blast. We had so much fun.
So
Yeah.
wait, while you were still in physical therapy, you were teaching them how to swing dance?
That was my physical therapy. Yeah, they said, they asked me about myself and what I did. I told them, they said, well, let's do it. So I taught them. Step, step, rock, step. It wasn't anything very thrilling. I couldn't do much, but it was great. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Was there ever a point where you felt like, okay, if you're a quadriplegic, no, but if you're a paraplegic, okay, I could get on with life. Did you ever feel like, I'm a dancer, and dancing brings me so much happiness, what if I can't dance?
There's this interesting thing. A lot of people have asked me over the years, that accident, what if you had not been able to dance again? Because I think that when I broke my neck, that disturbed people on a really deep and core level, because most of my friends, all my friends know I'm dancers. A lot of my friends are dancers. Most of my colleagues are dancers. So for this idea of something to happen to a dancer and they can't dance anymore is very traumatizing for people who know me. That was very traumatizing for them. Now for me, the interesting thing is that there's actually a neurological illness that runs rampant in my family. And I have known since I was a child that I might get this illness. And this illness, what it does is that you end up in a wheelchair. So since my cognizant moments of life, I've known that's a possibility. And I've always thought that was a great motivator in my life. That was something that said, you better do this right now, because one day you may be sitting in a wheelchair doing something else. Something interesting, but something else. So if you want to dance, you better dance now. If you want to do it. So, yeah. The illness, yeah. So, and my brother has it. My brother's in a wheelchair. My mom's in a wheelchair. My dad, my mom's sister's in a wheelchair. Many of my cousins. So, yeah. It's a pretty brutal illness. So.
And is there still a possibility that you might get that?
Yes. Yeah. And the interesting thing, this is something, is that I can be tested for it and find out whether or not I'm going to get it, but I have refused. I actually, we had this big family reunion, and Johns Hopkins came and did blood tests on everybody, and I would only submit to the blood test if they swore they would never give me the results, because I don't want to know. I'd rather just keep going, because my other brother who doesn't have it, he said, you should know this is. You should know whether you have it. I said, David, what am I going to do if I find out? He said, well, you could prepare your house and everything. You get prepared. I said, I can do that if I get it, but I don't want to now assume, that little muscle thing, that means I'm getting it, or I trip, that means I'm getting it. Well, that's kind of already there, but I don't need to help it along. You know how we are. We're human beings. Achoo! Oh my God, I'm getting a cold. Yeah. So, no, I don't need to know. So that's been my philosophy. If they come up with a treatment for it, if they have a cure, I'll go find out. Meanwhile, it's neurological. We're still working on that.
Do you think that this attitude that you have, this very positive, they're positive people, and people face adversity, but those are pretty extreme adversarial conditions.
Yeah.
Being paralyzed through an accident, or possibly ending up in a wheelchair through a condition, a disorder. Do you think